So the question is, why has Ethereum underperformed? Wow. Yeah, that is a very wide-ranging question. I mean, it's literally a question that two people could talk about all night over a few beers or something, and it could be the whole subject of a talk show episode. Quite honestly, I'll give you my 2 cents. What I think. Look, I started really getting into Ethereum when I started to watch a guy a few years ago. Actually, it was in the last cycle, so we're talking like just after the pandemic, or after it started, like in the previous cycle 4 years ago. And there was a guy called Anthony Sassano, and he's known to be an ETH maxi. He loves to talk about ETH. And I found his show super interesting. I didn't understand half of what he talked about, but it really sounded like there was a lot of innovation going on in the Ethereum community. Sounded like a great community. A lot of people really motivated. Now look, of course you've got Vitalik Buterin, who is the, let's call him like the figurehead of the whole community, but he's more than that. I mean, he's highly respected. And let's make a comparison, right? So Cardano is a different chain, and Cardano pumped up a lot I think it was about 5 or 6 years ago, and at one point it was a top 3 crypto, if I remember correctly. It was just behind Ethereum, and some people were like, oh, it's going to topple Ethereum, and it never did, and eventually it fell out of favor. And I think, if I remember correctly, it maybe went down to like the end of the top 10 or something like that. Basically, there was a figurehead of Cardano called Charles Hoskins, and he was always in the news. He was always bigging up Cardano, and there was a kind of war going on. There was people on the ETH side saying, no, we've got a real development community, and Vitalik is not just a guy who just talks a lot of shit all the time. He really, he really knows his stuff. He's highly respected for a reason. He's technically is a genius, etc. And these people would say that the other guy in Cardano, Charles Hoskins, that he's just a lot of hot air, basically. They wouldn't say he talks shit, but they would talk disparagingly about him. I'll be honest, I don't know. I've never met him. I've only read about him. I've only read what people say about him. I will say that he was always in the news. He was always talking it up, talking about what was coming. And the difference is that Vitalik was not always trying to promote ETH. He would be quite sparing. Whenever you heard him talk about something, he really didn't say that much, and what he did say was pretty interesting. It looked like he was more technically involved himself. At least these are the appearances. And so I think what basically happened when Cardano fell out of popularity and ETH continued to go from strength to strength is, I think that Cardano, and I believe partly because of Charles Hoskins, I believe it kind of lost credibility in the wider market in comparison to ETH, which I believe just gained credibility because of its community and because of its so-called leader, whatever you want to call him, Vitalik. And in the end as well, if you look at the projects that actually came out and the utility, I mean, just go look at how much the total value locked up. Ethereum has got 60 billion locked up in DeFi on it. I don't know how much is locked up on Cardano, but it's safe to say that if Ethereum's the leading one, Cardano is not going to be anywhere near it. It has, by the way, some very unique features, such as the ability to stake, but without losing control of your coins. That is one amazing thing about Cardano. It also had its own wallet, which enabled you to stake from the wallet, which in those days I don't think you could do from any other wallet. So that was, I think, what was it called? The Orion wallet or something like that. Not Oreo, but it's something like that. The Oroi wallet it was called. So that's not to say that Cardano didn't have innovation. It definitely did. And so you had these two sides, both maxis, and in the end it kind of looked like ETH convinced the broader market that it was the better coin, and Cardano fell out of favor. Certainly from the speculator's point of view, it fell out of favor. I don't know which one is honestly better than the other. I've not developed for either, but it can be like VHS Betamax war. The Betamax is technically in the passage of time, we can say that the Betamax is better than VHS cassette tape, but in the end, VHS won, right? And you can say that about a lot of different real products and electronics and stuff like that. So that's kind of what happened there. But in recent years, what's happened with Ethereum is a lot of people have said, well, there was always this Bitcoin versus Ethereum thing going on, and a lot of people were like, especially ETH maxis, were saying, well, what's so good about Bitcoin? It doesn't do anything, right? It just stores wealth. Well, Ethereum can store wealth, and it's got DeFi. It's got all this utility, smart contract functionality. There was a time when the fees were super high on Bitcoin, and all the ETH maxis were saying, well, look how high the fees are. It's ridiculous. And then later on, the ETH fees also went super high, and looked a little bit stupid to point the finger at Bitcoin for its fees when Ethereum fees also skyrocketed. In the end, both of them, the fees have gone back to being low now. So it's not so much an issue that it was, that's kind of, it looks a little bit like ancient history now. But what's happened over time is ETH has bleeded value since it's reached its last ETH, which I think its last all-time high, if I remember correctly, well, it wasn't recently, put it that way. I think it was 2 or 3 years ago. I don't know. My memory gets really fuzzy on things like this, but it's basically just slow bleed of value for many, many, many months now, and to the point where it's nowhere near its all-time high, and it's kind of near a very long-term moving average low, right? Like, if you look at it now, it couldn't go much lower. And by the way, I don't mean that in US dollar terms only. I mean that if you look at ETH versus Bitcoin, so you value ETH in Bitcoins, then it's the same thing. It's truly lost so much value even against Bitcoin, right? So if you were an ETH maxi who eschewed Bitcoin and said, right, I'm going to hold 100% ETH, or maybe 80% ETH, maximum 20% Bitcoin, you will have lost a lot of money, right? Because ETH has just bled. And people are now starting to look at ETH in a different way. People are now starting to look at ETH as like, well, you keep talking about these new things that you're going to do to solve various problems, but you're taking a long time to actually bring them to fruition. ETH has always been a very patient sort of chain and said, we're not going to rush anything, we're going to do things the proper way, we're going to make the major changes very slowly, let the market adjust, there's no rush, we're here for the long term. And what's happened is there's been a big threat in recent years, and that is Solana. And people used to laugh at Solana because the chain used to basically go down. It used to break when it did too many transactions, and it did this a few times over the last few years where it just stopped working, and it would be down for like half a day or something like that. And what's happened more recently is there's been this explosion of meme coins, and the volumes on Solana have gone through the roof. And say all you want about meme coins being worth nothing, and it's true, meme coins are worthless, right? There's no underlying intrinsic value to any of them. They're just a joke. I know some people will say, well, there's a community and all this, but it's BS, it's bullshit, right? Meme coins are worthless, right? 99% of meme coins are worthless, and some of them end up doing really well, but they're still worthless. They're still pointless. There's no point to them. They're kind of an embarrassment, really. But there's so many pump and dumps on Solana, and they're too easy to make. Now you've got pump.fun and all that kind of stuff. But what you can say about Solana, even though meme coins are worthless, they've proven that the chain can now handle huge volumes of transactions, and it won't break down anymore, and it will do it for very low fees, and they'll confirm super quickly. And you now have an ecosystem around Solana, right? You have like Radium and stuff like this, which you have a lot of liquidity now on Solana. You have a lot of innovation. You have this amazing wallet called Phantom Wallet on Solana, which you can even bridge to other chains. You can swap via the wallet very easily. Not all wallets allow you to do swaps, for example. There are other wallets like Trust and and I believe Exodus now does swaps. So swaps are now becoming a common thing in wallets, but Trust Wallet really is leading the way in terms of swapping from within a wallet, because it was driven by meme coins. And Phantom Wallet is generally recognized to be an amazing wallet. So you know how this amazing ecosystem now surrounding Solana, and people are saying now, well, if Solana can innovate in all many different aspects, what the hell is going on with ETH? You keep telling us to be patient, to wait for X, Y, and Z. Solana developers are doing it in about a tenth of the time it's taken you to do it. And now there's even talk about the leadership. Ethereum never really relied on Vitalik, but it's got to be said that without Vitalik, kind of, he is important. He's kind of like the Steve Jobs of Ethereum. Now, Apple survived Steve Jobs' passing, and I'm sure that Ethereum could survive Vitalik stepping down, but it would definitely shock the Ethereum ecosystem. He is very important to driving it forward and to the stability. He's just like the Steve Jobs of Apple, basically, that he is to Ethereum. And now there's a lot of chatter on the internet about, well, maybe he's not the right guy. Maybe we need someone else to drive things forward. And I'm not saying that Ethereum is going to split and that people are in mass disagreement, but it's not quite all happy place that it once was. And I think that's largely because of Solana. And then more recently, you saw in the kind of President Trump winning the election, you saw Cardano suddenly burst high again. Now look, a lot of those coins have also come back. A lot of those alts have paired their gains and go back to where they were. But Cardano is basically kind of resurrected. I still think Solana is way better than Cardano, but and Solana is the main threat to Ethereum. But this is basically why Ethereum has underperformed, and it's continued to bleed. And there's also another theory that actually Bitcoin is the only coin that will just keep increasing until full adoption, whenever that may be, 20 years from now. And there's a theory that maybe altcoins, what they do is they very quickly pump and go to a super high level, and then they flounder and they go very low again, and eventually they pump again and get back to those levels. And previously a lot of people used to think, oh great, it's recovered back from the dead, the only way is up from here. Well, actually there's a new prevailing theory, well maybe not prevailing, but there's a new theory gaining ground that actually altcoins, they don't go up like Bitcoin. They pump, they dump, and then they pump again, and then they kind of just oscillate. They might not dump as bad as before, but they will never pump as they did before as well. And they'll just oscillate, and the best days in terms of price are behind them. They may never reach ETH again. Maybe once or twice more, but that's it. And then they'll just oscillate and stabilize quickly. Whereas Bitcoin is the only one that can really keep going up, because it's about adoption of, store of value and all that. But utility coins like Ethereum and like other ones, they'll just oscillate. So this is the other theory. Now, ETH definitely looks undervalued right now. I don't think it can drop too much more. But does that mean it's necessarily going to pump back to where it came from? I'm also doubtful of that. I think it will pump. I don't think it'll pump. I don't think it's guaranteed to pump to the previous all-time high. And I also don't think it's over that even if it does pump high, that it won't come down again. I do subscribe to that theory that it could just be an oscillator. Now that's fine. If you're in it for the price action, get in on it low. You can still profit handsomely. But does that mean it's a good long-term buy, an oscillator? Probably not. But anyway, those are my thoughts about why Ethereum has underperformed. I'd love to know your opinion, so please leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed having this, if I provoked some thought. And I'll see you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.